So, okay. So, this is one case which presented to me like this. It was referred to me by one of my colleagues, and she's a very good surgeon, but they don't have. She works in a government hospital, and there they don't have access to all the rescue devices as we call it. So she told me that she started off with a case where suddenly the pupil came down, and even though she was on the Rexis, she could not complete the Rexis, and before she could do anything, and they did not have hooks in place, and this is in the pre-phenocaine days. Otherwise I would have told her that you can rescue with phenocaine itself. So nowadays, if you get a situation like this, intraoperative meiosis, so it came with an air bubble. I could frankly not see anything. All I knew was that the Rexis was an intumescent cataract, hard cataract, and the Rexis was lost, and she had tried to convert it into a can opener, thinking that she'll do an ECC or something, or SICS, but had to be abandoned. So when I got it, it was like this. And let's see, because that was all the history I could go by. We did a posterior segment ultrasound, but beyond that, I had nothing else to go by. And there was a incision here, which was just outside the limbus. So I made my own incision. I don't like to use the scleral tunnels if I have to do a phaco. If I had to do a convert to SICS, I would have probably used that. I was hoping to manage this with phaco, which works best in my hands. And due to the air bubble, frankly, nothing was visible. So I decided to stain the capsule before removing the bubble. Then using Viscoat to protect the corneal endothelium and to create good space in the eye. And of course, you can see that the pupil doesn't really dilate well at all. This was after a lot of Tropicasil Plus, and pupil would not dilate. And you can now see some of the remnants of the capsule. So of course, I have to now do something about the pupil. And analyze how we are. So I get to do all these, a lot of, I think Ashu also gets to do similar things. A lot of these disaster cases where, they've sometimes been abandoned, or, if a trainee is doing it and abandoned, I'm sure a lot of us do that. But these cases are always a test, because you don't know what you're dealing with, especially if you've not done it on your own. Then it's always difficult to, imagine. And most often what happens is that what you're told is not how it is going to be. It's always a better picture that is portrayed to you. So, some of the important things are left out many times. So this is how it was. Runaway Rexis, tried to convert to a can opener, and I decided to complete what was attempted with the can opener, and then assess how we are. This was about 2 days post the prior surgery. And actually, can opener is not the best way. In retrospect, I think I should have tried to convert some of it into a flap, because these loose capsular tags, if you're going to do a phaco, are not good at all. They'll come into your phaco handpiece. So in retrospect, that big flap which was visible, I should have actually kind of torn it in such a way that there was a continuous kind of a broken Rexis. But all the same, this is how it is. But that's a lesson for the future. Whenever you can, please try to convert any kind of runaway Rexis or whatever you're dealing with into some kind of a Rexis, which even if it's broken, doesn't matter. Now, this was a very sticky kind of a cataract. And when Saurabh gave me this title of a sticky situations and sticky nucleuses, I remembered this case. So I thought I'll show this. And this would, once a cataract has been kind of opened up and left inside for 2-3 days, it tends, the cortex and the nucleus both become very difficult to handle. They don't rotate. They become really sticky, and the feel becomes totally different. I've done these a few times. So I know that, they're even difficult to crack. The capsule behaves a little differently, and cracking it becomes a little more challenging. So you can see here that I have to be very gentle, because if I use a little bit of too much of lateral separation forces, the tags will just extend to the posterior capsule and break. And of course, this is a tough situation even for a VR surgeon with a small pupil and all these things inside. God forbid, if you have a nucleus drop, you have to be very careful. So you have to have a very, very stable chamber, low settings, and be very patient. You can't do this in a rush of finishing it. And you have to go one piece at a time, and make sure that you're not using any heavy settings, and no big forces of separation inside the eye, because that'll just come out. And the epinucleus usually is very challenging to handle. Almost always in these cases, you'll be left behind with a big epinuclear shell, and then catching hold of it and trying to remove it, as we are doing here, is also a challenge. So of course, bimanually, you can kind of keep feeding stuff into your pot and yet avoid catching those tags, because you do have to go into the periphery sometimes. So you have to hold your breath and keep moving as you can. Let me take you to the next part of this surgery to save time. Once the nucleus is gone, then you're left with the task of getting the cortex. Now that again is not going to be straightforward because you have all those tags there. So good learning from our old ECC days, Ashu, when we used to primarily do ECCs and deal with all these can opener capsulotomies.
Stripping.
We've learned how to avoid the tags and get the cortex out. So there you can go with bimanual is a big relief here. We used to do Simcoes, but now with bimanuals, you can actually have a very controlled way of getting them out. And you can see that they are really stuck and you have to peel it literally, because over 2-3 days in the aqueous, the cortex tends to get modified and then you can get it out. So you can see that you have to avoid those capsular tags, and slow and steady wins the race in such cases. The other option, of course, would be to just go in with a cutter, remove everything and do an SFIL or a glue dieval. But I kind of like to preserve the bag. And here we are going to inject visco. Of course, the iris is tented up. So before withdrawing your second instrument. So now we have a relatively clean looking eye, and the thought is to put the lens into the bag. And of course, you could go with a single piece, but with such a badly broken rhexis, ideal thing would be to put a 3-piece. Let's see what lens we decided to use here. And you have to just watch my left hand. Let me pause this for you, because the iris is tenting up. When I introduce the cartridge tip, this iris is going to interfere, and sometimes you'll create a dialysis or you'll create a hole into the iris, and you'll have a lot of iris traumatization. So what I'm doing is, from my left hand, I'm using a plane manipulator and keeping the iris away from the port. Just watch. I've done these complications many times, so with experience, you tend to learn these, and thankfully I'm using a 3-piece lens here. But 3-piece comes with its own problems. Let's see what happens. So that went in with a little bit of a jerk, and then just watch what's happening. In spite of my best efforts at trying to keep it in the correct orientation, the lens flips. So now we have a 3-piece lens which is flipped inside with a broken rhexis and a suspect bag. And now I have the task of flipping this lens inside. I can't leave it like this. So, whenever you are in a soup, you end up falling from this pan into the fire. So I flipped it all right. Thankfully, it seems to have worked, but let's see if I survive. Now, as I position this into the bag, the haptic is now in the bag, but now watch what's happening. From the haptic tip, we have a bleed coming up from the iris now. So just watch that as the IL goes into the bag, but now I have a new problem to deal with. There's a hyphema. And so all these are sticky situations. So when Saurabh told me to show a video with a sticky lens and a sticky situation, I thought this fits perfectly. Now you have to, of course, make sure that you get that out. And once that is done, you can position the lens into the bag and close out. The iris hooks go out, and it's usually easy to do that. And this incision I have sutured because it was, used quite a bit. And I think for the 3-piece, I would have made it a 3 mm or a 2.8 or something like that. Or whenever in doubt, I think it's good to suture it. Nowadays, I use a supraincisional tunnel more often than the suture, and it works really well. But I think this was the end of it. Should we have time to show one more case? Or
I think so. We can do that. Yeah.
Okay, so one more. Now, this was a very hard brown cataract, and I'll just. So we started by doing the rhexis. And I realized that it was small, so I'm just going one more round, trying to make it larger. So ideally, I would have liked to have it even larger, and you can see that the pupil is a little small, and there is an iridotomy here. There's a peripheral laser iridotomy here. So this patient is one with a chronic ACG kind of a thing with a very hard cataract. And the patient is uncooperative. You saw the patient move there, the head moved violently over there. And you have to keep on holding onto the patient's head with both hands so that they don't suddenly jump around. And you can see that it's a floppy iris and the pupil is constricting. So again, a tight situation, and then forces of lateral separation without breaking the rhexis. So it's always good to deal with the endonucleus. As you can see that once you've made 2-3 cracks, sometimes the endonucleus tends to separate out. And then you can remove that endonucleus in these very hard cataracts, because that creates room and space for you to crack the posterior plate. So if you can somehow have that endonuclear, small little 2-3 mm of endonucleus out somewhere in the beginning, it makes it much easier. And then of course you can see that I'm dealing with a very small pupil now. I should ideally be switching to some kind of a device, but usually you always as you become experienced in surgery, you think that you'll get away with it, which is not sometimes the right thing to do. So for a average surgeon or an early surgeon, always switch at this point to iris hooks. I was able to manage this thanks to good machines and able to complete it. So but if this surgery is going to go long, you have to be careful. Now this, I thought that this my task was over now. Started removing the cortex, and I realized that the cortex was very sticky, wasn't ready to come out. And you can see how I've put phenocaine here to get a slightly bigger. Patient is uncooperative. You can see how the patient is moving around. I'm struggling to keep him steady. Now, as you can see how the PC was bulging, the PC was actually touching the cornea there. It's a very, very loose bag, and it tends to keep bulging forward. So you can imagine that with such a loose bag and with such a sticky cortex, the chance of catching the capsule is very high. You can see that the capsule is tending to come into the port all the time. So I have to at some point decide to put in a CTR, but with such a sticky cortex which is not coming out even in the normal situation, if I put a CTR, it will get further entangled. So I'm just trying to debulk whatever I can by manual technique, keeping the PC away and aspirating the cortex wherever I can. Again, you see how it bulges forward, the vitreous phase, and the PC is just, and I have to push it back each time. Now I'm thinking that maybe I have a rent and the capsule looks broken at one or two places here. And I'll have to verify whether it's broken because that will add to the situation. So anyway, I thought that it's not, it's just a wrinkle, and I decided to go in with a CTR and see if with stretching the PC becomes better. So the right decision, at some point you have to put in a CTR to make these bags more manageable. And now with very little cortex left, it'll be much easier for me to get that cortex out without getting stuck with the CTR. Ashu does a lot of these cases with CTRs and CTS, and I always enjoy watching his nice videos. So you can see how it's badly stuck to the PC, but then the CTR has made life so much easier and time to put in the lens. Wound assisted injection. Should have gone into the bag, but I don't know if it is. Okay, so it's the haptics are stuck, but I'll manage to put it in the bag. And this saves the day. So don't leave any small cortical fibers. You can remove them even after putting in the lens if it's a tight situation, and then you can close the thing and then you're out. So I'll stop here. I thought I was able to, I hope I was able to contribute to the course a little bit. And
very nice videos, Dr. Gaurav, as usual.
Gaurav, I think contributing to the course would be an understatement. You more than contributed. And lovely videos. The first one, of course, was truly, in fact, both I would say were dealing with sticky situations. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
both were dealing with very sticky situations. The first one I was aptly titled, and you managed it very well. And the second, I think there was a very important tip there. When you have a lax bag, which is kind of moving forward, and even if you don't have a very sticky cortex, which you had, in fact, that was a double whammy for you. Even just a lax bag, it's always a good idea. And you showed it so beautifully that there was a doubt of a rent being there but it turned out to be a wrinkle. By just putting in a CTR and the circumferential expansile forces that it imparts, it just stretches the bag out, and it becomes so much easier, how easily you could deal with it later on. And also the doubt cleared up whether it's a rent or a wrinkle, which, even with the best of microscopes and the best of hands may persist for some time. So I think very well demonstrated.
Only thing I didn't do correctly, Ashu, was that I should have passed a 10-0 suture through the eyelet of the CTR, which is what I normally always do when there's a suspect bag. Because that way, if it just goes into the somewhere, if there's an undiagnosed rent or something, and it goes into the vitreous, you can just pull it out. I normally do that. I call it as the suture secured CTR. But here, somehow, I probably was sure that it wasn't broken. So
a rescue device, right? Yeah. But Gaurav, I've known you more than 35 years, 30 years? So I know at the back of your mind, you were fairly certain that there was no rent there.
Yeah, I was really sure. Yes, I know.
So I know that's why you went ahead. Otherwise, you wouldn't have.
Yeah, I know.
You just wanted to ascertain, and anyway, the CTR had to go in. So I suspect that you knew it. So any other questions for any of the speakers? I think we don't have any questions from the audience. So if we need to ask each other or just to enlighten
Yeah,
everyone.
so I wanted to ask Harshal.
I'll have
Gaurav,
to take leave, Janin. I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
Are you
yeah.
asking me something? Okay, sure, sure.
feel free.
Jen, anything for Gaurav so that we can then excuse him?
Yeah, then I can,
So
once
I
you
was
allow me to leave.
just Gaurav's take-home message, that put the suture into the CTR. I think you should do it for all CTRs because you really never know. So I just really like that as a lovely take-home point.
Yeah.
I think, Janin, if you're putting a CTR towards the end of surgery, just putting it before you put in the implant and you're relatively sure, then it may not be required. But if you have to put in a CTR early in the case, and when you're going to do many maneuvers after that, especially if you're still dealing with the nucleus or a lot of cortex remains, and then, those maneuvers could break the rhexis or it could cause a PCR down the line, then I think it's very important to do that. But suppose you've almost finished the surgery and you're putting it as a last thing before you put in the lens, then probably it's not required.
Okay, Gaurav, just one clarification here. I think when you put a suture there, you tie a suture. Do you knot it or what?
So I've done both. Sometimes I just pass a loop through the eyelet, but then you have two threads coming out, and sometimes I tie a knot. So when you have two threads coming out, I've burnt my fingers once when I tried to remove that suture and I tried to tug on it. It kind of pulled the CTR out of the bag. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And so now I put a knot and I just
then
pull on that thing and cut it very close to the eyelet by pulling it inside. So I think both things work well. Whatever works better in your hand. Yeah.
So that's also good. You can just pull it, tug it a little, and then just snip it with the vanas or something. Yeah. So Gaurav, I think
9-0 or 10-0 Prolene.
No, I just part a 10-0 monofilament through it and then just kind of
this is just to secure, not to tie.
It's just to temporarily
temporary
anchor kind of a thing. Yeah.
Most likely it will be pulled out. It comes out in either case.
Yeah.
If it has to be brought out or
anyway.
Gaurav, suppose you need to cut it. Suppose you've taken a knot there and you need to, now you realize your CTR is in place and you want to cut it, but you have to really pull it back, go with your side port scissor to cut the knot.
No. You can go in, so there are two ways to do it. You can go from the main port with the vanas, pull on the thread a little bit. As you pull on the thread, the eyelet comes into the pupillary area and you just snip it close to the eyelet, right? Or you can use a micro scissors, go inside with one of the side ports and again tug on it a little bit, just like you cut a single pass four throat knot very close to it. Same way you can go inside and do it on near the eyelet basically. So the eyelet is pulled in, you kind of tug on the suture, the eyelet comes in a little bit to the, visual, it becomes
within the rhexis edge.
It becomes visible to you and then you can snip it.